Okay, cool. We're live. We're back. It's been a while since we've been on LinkedIn. Today, to kickstart things back off, I'm joined by Justin Baum, who is the founder of ZZZ Bears, and also our new marketing manager, Leah McGee, who's going to co-host and steal a limelight from me. Justin, thanks for joining us. Why don't you give us a brief intro into what the company is, how you got started, and where you're up to today?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I'm super excited to be here and talk to you guys. So I'm Justin Baum. I'm I say the ZEO of ZZZ Bears. And we started the business in 2015. So the founding story is kind of a good one. So in my full-time job, I'm a creative director. I work for ad agencies. From 2005 to 2012, I was the creative director and lead writer of recruitment advertising for the United States Marine Corps. And I worked for their longtime ad agency, JWT. So every time I'd go to a military base to shoot a commercial, I'd bring my then 5-year-old daughter home a little, souvenir from the base exchange. It could be a T-shirt or a keychain. And at the time, she was having trouble sleeping, bad dreams, fear of the dark, sort of those common nighttime fears that kids have. And I realized that even a 5-year-old understands that Marines equal protection. So I bought her a bear from the base exchange, and I told her a story. I said, this is Marine Bear, and he's protected the nation for 200 years. And now he's going to protect you while you sleep. And she said, well, what if he falls asleep? And I said, he's a Marine. He would never fail his mission. And so that night we put the bear on duty outside of her door. And, my daughter slept like a bear in hibernation. So I knew then that I had something. If it could help her sleep, it could probably help lots of other kids as well. So it was many years, actually, it was a couple of years later till I actually brought it to life and gave it the name of Sergeant Sleep Tight and created the sleep system. But that was the original sort of genesis for the company.
Love it. Great stuff. So every company has a unique mission statement, and obviously you've sort of answered this as well, but what's yours in a nutshell?
So, even from the beginning, I knew I wanted to give back. It's such a popular thing to do now with companies, almost like you have to do it. But for us, it was more than just sort of something you should do as a company now and what customers expect. I really felt connected to the people, to the Marines themselves, because I'd worked with them, because I'd met so many Marines and their families, and I understood the sacrifices that they all make, not just the person who serves, but the families that are left behind as well. And I really wanted to give back to them specifically. So we joined forces. We partnered with a group called TAPS, and we donate bears monthly to children who have lost a parent in the line of duty. And there's really no limit to how many we'll donate. However many they need on any given month is how many we'll actually give. It's really meaningful to me. And, it's really such an intertwined part of the company.
I love it. It's great. So because I was speaking to you about this actually last time we spoke. Obviously, you started with that focus on the military, but sort of evolved over time. And obviously now you can see on the sites, the pandemic really changed things for you. And you started to obviously branch out a little bit from the military. And like now, obviously, these other heroes, right? Like firefighters, nurses, all these other people who play like a key role in our society that you wanted to sort of show respect to. How did the brand evolve in that sense? Was it just because of COVID related, where you're seeing like there's an opportunity here, or was this just a natural progression overall?
So the company's gone through a kind of a big evolution since its beginning. So when I started, I thought I had one bear named Sergeant Sleep Tight, dressed in a generic camouflage uniform that would work for everybody. And the audience was really mainstream moms. I thought I was solving a universal problem for parents, but I quickly learned in small business with a small marketing budget, targeting all moms is a really sort of long and hard road. So I wanted to niche down, right? So I was like, okay, well, we started with the Marines. Let's be about the military. Let's serve the military specifically. And what happened was we got into the Marines exchanges very quickly, which is sort of a full circle story right there. They started selling our bears, which was great, but they wanted a bear dressed like a Marine, right? The generic camouflage wasn't going to work for them. And then pretty quickly we got into the Navy exchanges, and they wanted a bear dressed like a sailor. And oh, by the way, they don't have sergeants, so it had to be sailor Sleep Tight. Then we got into the Coast Guard exchanges. Same thing happened. They don't have sergeants or sailors. So now all of a sudden we have Coastie Sleep Tight, and he's dressed like a Coast Guard. So you can see how we went from one all of a sudden. So now we're representing every branch of the military, which we probably would have done eventually anyway, but it happened pretty fast. So you go from one SKU to, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And that's what we did for a while. And that felt right. But then people started asking, what about police and what about fire? And what about these other, community-based protectors?
Yeah.
And they had a great point. I mean, those people are just as, worthy of being celebrated as anybody else. And so we expanded to them. That felt natural. There were other protectors. And then the pandemic hit and a new brand of hero emerged, delivery drivers, hospital workers. And really that was a big shift in the company, because then we went from being about nighttime protection to about celebrating heroes. Because the other thing we learned was that people weren't just buying this for their kids. Adults were buying it for other adults. For example, soldiers were buying it for their wives or girlfriends if they were getting deployed, or adults were buying it for their father or grandfather who had served in Nam and they wanted a bear to honor him or her. So that was kind of a revelation too. It really speaks to how important it is to know your audience, who's buying your bears and why, or your product in general. And so at that point, we unbundled the sleep system from the bear. So it used to be you could only buy the bear with the sleep system, which was the door hang, the oath, and the stickers, and this whole routine. And we changed. So we expanded to heroes and included healthcare workers and more. And then we unbundled the sleep system from the bear. So now you can basically build a hero model, right? You can build a hero the way you want to. Then you can personalize it. You can add name and ranks and all kinds of things. And that's really popular. It's what people want these days. They want to make things the way they want them, whether it's ordering fast food in Chipotle or ordering a bear, right? They want it the way they want it. And I think that makes a lot of sense. As a consumer, I feel the same way. And so, and one of the things we did during the pandemic, also, we partnered with FedEx, and we're actually making a FedEx bear for them. Because again, delivery drivers, they kept things going through the pandemic and still are, right? When the rest of the world was shut down, they kept everything going by delivering packages. And so very much heroes in their own right. And so, we're really excited to work with them.
Amazing. Leah, when are you going to get me the best CEO in the world, Bear?
Yeah, can we personalize a Magnet Monster t-shirt for one of the bears, please?
You sure can. I don't know if we can call them heroes, but we can do
it. So we had a little bit of chat before, and you mentioned obviously being the creative director as well as having your own company. How have you kind of managed, obviously working full time alongside growing the business online? Because I mean, we work online and we know it can take up a lot of your time. There's multiple avenues to be looking after, as well as working full time. I mean, how have you managed it?
I don't know. Not well is probably the short answer. Well, hopefully my full-time company is not watching this. This is a private conversation, right? This isn't being broadcast, right?
About that.
I mean, that's challenging. It means a lot of early mornings. It means a lot of late nights. It means weekends. I mean, the day is usually sacred for my full-time job. Except these 45 minutes, of course. It's challenging because there's so much to do as a small business owner, and it's never done. And the part of it's a time thing, and also part of it's a skill set thing. I wish I could do so many things, but I just don't have the time or the skills to do all those things. But it really does mean waking up early and making time for things that are important. And I'm super passionate about what I do, and I think that's key. Because as soon as I lose that passion, it's going to get pretty difficult to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and check the ads manager and Facebook and see how ads are performing and that kind of thing, or writing a new flow, as you know, right? Or testing subject lines or whatever it is, right? That it's never ending. And so if you're not passionate about what you're doing, it really is hard to do it. And I have a daughter and family, and I like to spend time with them. And so there's dinner time, and so it's one of those things you just have to make time. You'll make time for the things that are important to you, and this is super important to me. So I find the time.
Sounds quite frightening to wake up at 5:30 and look at Facebook ads, especially in the last few months.
It is. That is a splash of cold water to the face these days. But yeah, it's not always easy, as you know.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of fun, right? It's a game in some ways.
Yeah.
To constantly test and to have control over things yourself. Because in my full-time job, I mean, I work for a very large company with 55,000 employees, right? And so I have a voice, but I'm one of many. But at my company, you know, my voice is it, and I can make all the decisions, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. But at least they're mine, and I own my choices and my bad decisions. But I learn. That's the important thing. And what's interesting is how much better at my full-time job Z Bears has made me.
Interesting.
Because who else, you know, knows as much as I do about things like production and manufacturing and importing and email marketing and social media and not just, you know, how to write an ad for social media or how to write a post, but actually how to go to Ads Manager and create an ad and do targeting and all those things. And so I'm not an expert in any of them, but I know them pretty well because I do them myself. And so that really translates into me being better at my full-time job.
Yeah.
Does this, you know, Leah mentioned before about like, how do you fit everything in time-wise? And you've said that like how it positively carries over to your full-time job. Does it make you better at delegating, do you think, as well in that role?
Yeah, yeah. In a way, I don't know how to answer that. Maybe I think it makes me a better manager. How about that? Because now I understand if I'm working with the social media team and it's their expertise, right? I'm talking about my full-time job, and we have a dedicated social media team who is much better at social media than I am. But I understand things on a deeper level than I did 2 years ago, right? When I talk to them, so whether I'm managing them directly or whether just having conversations with them, I can understand things now at a deeper level. It's not just they're telling me what works. I'm understanding it. And I can actually throw out some things and saying, have you tried this? Or this is what I'm seeing on Facebook. Have you thought about this? So I'm, you know, just much more attuned to things that are going on in many different spaces that are related to marketing and advertising.
Yeah, I think it definitely brings perspective when you're in charge of something and then being in a smaller section and having to understand how all these things kind of fit in with one another, and knowing whatever you're doing is going to have a knock-on effect on what someone else is doing, and kind of keeping an eye on everything and then being able to carry that over.
Yeah.
You must be really busy though.
Yeah, it's not, but it's like, you know, I feel like I've gotten my MBA in small business or entrepreneurship, you know, I mean, some people go to school for it. I'm just doing it. And again, I've made many mistakes down the road. But I don't know, there's something that's kind of beautiful about that too. Yeah. Absolutely.
Completely agree with you. I've made many mistakes. Number one, hiring Leah.
I don't know about
that.
Okay, let's get into a bit of the nitty-gritty on the marketing side. I want to talk about a couple of things you mentioned before as well about like adding those sort of add-on, you know, like the I actually can't remember when you place the thing on the door for people to sleep. What's it called again?
That's a door hang.
A door hang, yeah.
Okay. A door hang, right? It says this room protected by Sergeant Sleep Tight. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit about AOV in a minute, but we'll come on to that. So just give us a brief overview, because obviously you're very limited on time on a day-to-day basis. How do you pick your battles? Like, what marketing channels are you investing in at the moment?
Facebook has been the main driver of paid media for us for several years now. We're also on Google and on Instagram as well, and with paid media, but Facebook really has been the most effective channel for us. And I think it's just the ability to target, especially when you're niching down like we are, and we have this very specific group of people that we're trying to target. Facebook's just really good at finding those people and delivering ads to them. So yeah, Facebook has definitely been the main driver of sales for e-commerce. But email has also been super effective for us. And then we didn't take that seriously for a long time. Started off in 2015, I was on MailChimp sending out a campaign every, 6 months or whatever. It was a sale or something, but I wasn't collecting emails. I just didn't understand the power of that channel. And it's only been in the last couple of years really where I've started to just tap into that with sort of your help, certainly. But but we're running lead gen ads on Facebook right now 24/7. So we're always collecting new emails, for example, and getting them into welcome flows and, retargeting them. And then of course, all our basic flows are set up, and understanding segmenting, which I'm just starting to really understand the power of now too. Collecting information for ourselves, not relying on other channels, but when they come to our site, understanding who's coming to the site, what they're looking for, and then serving them the best possible, most relevant content to them via email. It's just amazing. And I'm actually so excited about email. I wish I was better at it. I wish I had more time for it, because it's an amazing channel. And of course, as you always say, it's one of the few that you own. So I love email. And I look forward to learning more from you guys and implementing it.
And in terms of tech stack, obviously, I know you're using Klaviyo. What other tools are you using as part of the business?
Let's think about that. So Klaviyo is the big one for email. We don't use a lot of like outside tools besides, Facebook Ads Manager, which I don't know if that's a tool or not. We just started experimenting with something called Segmetrics, which helps track where your sales are coming from, because Ads Manager is so unreliable right now.
God,
yeah. I mean, it's just, it's so unreliable, and it overinflates purchases, and it's just, you can't count on it to make any decisions. And without good data, it's very hard to make good decisions. So we're experimenting with Segmetrics, which helps understand where the traffic and where the sales are coming from, so we can double down on those things and then stop doing the things that aren't, really paying off for us. I think those are the main ones. I mean, Pinterest is another channel that we're looking at. And we're excited about. I don't know too much about it, unfortunately, but it seems like, because so much of our audience is actually female and moms specifically, and I know Pinterest is skews that way. So I'm intimidated but excited to dig in and learn more about that channel as well.
This is something me and Leah are actually putting together at the moment, like in terms of acquisition channels. We put out a poll last week, and we're speaking to our audience, asking them, obviously, given what's going on with Facebook at the moment, what channels are people exploring? And there was a lot of talk about Pinterest in there as well, and how there was one guy who said he had abandoned Facebook ads to just fully go all in on Pinterest. And getting really good results. So definitely look out for that. We're going to sort of put together some resources on it.
Great. Yeah. More stuff that I won't be able to have time to execute on.
You'll have to ask us, we'll help you.
What the other one is too that we haven't dove into, but is SMS.
We can definitely talk about that together. Yeah, we're experimenting with it on. We were like one of the last, I would say, in our industry in the field, because we were waiting for Klaviyo for so long, to roll it out, because we wanted to keep it under one roof. It just makes more sense. But we've migrated a few people now onto SMS within Klaviyo, and obviously, you need to be omnichannel, and it's just a really positive touch point. Some people like SMS, some people like email. You need to join both up for best results.
Yeah, and I've heard the same things as well. The thing, there's so much I don't understand about it, because where does one start and where the other one end, right? Who gets, if it's an abandoned cart flow, do they get it via email? Do they get it for an SMS? Do you do them both? I have so many questions. I look forward to learning more about that for sure.
Cool.
Great. So kind of going back to how you're feeling, obviously owning your own e-commerce store. So what would you say makes you the happiest about owning your e-commerce store? Disregarding obviously all the time and all the early mornings. But what kind of makes you the happiest about doing it? Because I think a lot of people think about doing it and like, oh, it's so time consuming. Oh, this is sometimes people are like, oh, it's a side hustle. And it's like, but what really makes you happy about it?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I think, people think it's glamorous or easy, but it's 10 times harder and more time consuming than you could ever think it's going to be. But so I think the thing that makes me happiest, though, is hearing from happy customers. because we make a product that's super meaningful to people, so much more than just, a stuffed toy. Because, whether it's a bear that's going to a child who's lost a parent who was killed in action, which happens a lot through our donations, or, it's keeping a kid company while mom or dad is deployed, right? So they have a little bit of mom or dad, with them. And then we see photos all the time of our bears that people post. It goes everywhere with the kids, right? To the supermarket and to bed and to, trips to Washington, D.C. It's like everywhere. It's like they don't let them go because they feel like they've got a piece of mom or dad that they're carrying with them. So I love, seeing those photos on social media, hearing from people about how meaningful it was or it is. And then again, not just to children, to adults too, whether it's a wife or a girlfriend of somebody who's serving, or, a dad who served in Nam and it's sitting up on the shelf. But it represents something super meaningful to the people. And so, yeah, I think that's what makes me happiest. It's certainly like not going into Facebook and creating new ads and, raising or lowering budgets or whatever. There's something interesting about that, but that's not what makes me happy. What makes me happy is when people are actually using the product in a way that it was meant to, or in ways that it wasn't meant to, unexpected ways, but just as meaningful ways. I think that's the best part of the business, and hearing from people, which we do all the time. We have tons of reviews on our site. And so, we know we're doing something that's good and people find, worthwhile.
Yeah. I think when you go in direct to the customer and you get to see the effect that it's having on someone's family or it's having on someone's life, it's like, even looking at some of the pictures on your website of obviously kids with the bears or the bears going to somewhere, it's like that kind of becomes a part of someone else's life. And it's like, I was involved in that. I was part of that.
Yeah, exactly.
We should start doing bears.
That's why we're stealing all the ideas. This is the whole point of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. When you start a business, it's hard to know where it's going to go, right? It's hard to know what people like. It's scary. You don't know if anyone's going to make a purchase, for example, right? It's like it just goes into ether, and what are people going to think? Do people like what I'm doing? Because it's hard to disassociate myself from the business.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I'm having a good sales day, I feel very good about myself. If it's a bad sales day, I feel like I'm not a very worthwhile small business owner, right? I must be doing something wrong. So when I see people with the bears and how happy it makes them, it does. I mean, it makes me happy because it's hard to separate myself from the product. So, maybe I need psychological help. I don't know.
At least it's better. Oh, give over. I think, you know what, Adam has a similar issue with disassociating himself from the business, but it's more because he wants his name and his face everywhere. Whereas we can see you're having an impact on children's lives, which is a bit cuter, to be honest.
I thought I was having a positive impact on your life, Leah, but obviously not.
Depends what day it is.
So I know, oops, I think I skipped a question. So, okay, similar question, but on the flip side, I was going to say what makes me unhappiest with my business, and it's definitely working with Leah, but
I brighten your day. I don't need it.
So obviously, like, we've talked a little bit, like it is a slog at times. Is there ever days where you've got a lot going on, you've got your own family as well, that you wonder, is it all worth it? And I know you're producing something that's very meaningful. What aspects do you struggle with the most apart from the time?
How long do we have? Well, right now there's a very specific struggle that's very sort of specific to the times we're in. So right now, because of COVID, it's just very difficult to get product. So when you manufacture overseas, right, there's just certain challenges within that. And then you layer in a pandemic and everything is just that much harder, right? So there are delays in getting product. Then there's the cost right now because of the increased cost of shipping. So that's a really big one. And from what I hear, that's not going to ease off anytime soon. In fact, it's going to go into 2023, most likely. So right now it's for us is exploring manufacturing other places. So, something you think you have solved, right? We have a great manufacturer we trust and we like. All of a sudden, we might need to find somebody completely different. So that's a really current struggle right now. Then you've got Facebook, which is just not performing as well as it used to because of the privacy changes and because of back-end changes they're making on their site. So it's looking for new channels like Pinterest, and we talked about. But I think, overall, it is just having the time. There's so much I want to do. Like SMS is a great example. I know that's something I should probably do, but it's just so intimidating to get started with a new channel. Same thing with Pinterest. I know I should do it, but where do I start? Who can I trust to help guide me? Or do I do it myself? Leah, great. You're hired, Leah.
Perfect.
Hi, so yeah, I mean, those are just some of some of the struggles.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's like the chicken and egg scenario. Like you constantly, and it's obviously it's so. Even though I'm in B2B, it's the same. Like we want to do so many different things. Like we don't invest in any paid ads, but I would like to. But you need to get a bit more sales, and to invest in that, and then justify the ROI. Yeah. So you always, like, as soon as you think you've took one step ahead, you hire someone like Leah and you take 10 steps back.
No, but I understand what you mean though, because we've just started Twitter and we've kind of realized going into that's a massive channel that Adam didn't do. So I was like, let's go and do this. Let's get Twitter going. And it is really daunting, and it's really like, why have I not got as many Twitter followers as what I've got on LinkedIn? Why is everything not kind of following one another? But it is that thing, it does take time, and it takes time to kind of build something, and each platform's different. And I think you look at other platforms and you go, oh, well, they've got loads, and but it is a struggle, and I think it is something that's fine. But you just need someone like me to come in and sort it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you want to diversify, but each of those takes time and expertise, and you can dip your toe into them, but I'm not sure how fruitful that's going to be, right? To just be on a channel to be on a channel. So you really got to invest in it. And so, I mean, it's great. Like you just hired Leah, and she can bring that skill set, or at least enthusiasm to it. So, as a sole business owner, you're wearing so many hats, and
it is interesting. I was saying to Leah just before, actually, because as you know, like we sort of built our business on organic content marketing, but as we've grown, I've just struggled to maintain the production of it. We're just dealing with other stuff. And one of the reasons we brought Leah on was to help with this, because we were falling behind on it. And I noticed as soon as I stopped with the content production, the sales slowed down, like the inbound. But since she's came in, she's done a great job, like bringing the momentum back, and all of a sudden people have started reaching out to me again. So don't leave there and go anywhere else.
Because my thing's on stuff instead of yours, that's why everyone's like, I know Leah, let's get in on her stuff.
Well, I mean, I think that's how we found you in the first place, was your content, your organic content on LinkedIn. I mean, you're one of the few brands who put out such good free content that it's worthwhile to follow. There's so few people like that. And so it's great. And that's how we met. And that's, why we continue to follow you. But it's also intimidating because you give so many great ideas. It's like, I can't keep up. I want to do everything you say I should do, but I don't have time to do all that.
That's my strategy, to bamboozle people until I think, you know what, just pay them and let them do it themselves.
That's brilliant.
I wanted to ask, actually, we talked about a couple of channels before. Have you been experimenting with TikTok ads at the moment, or is it something you're looking into?
No, I know the popularity of TikTok because I have a 17-year-old daughter. So it's funny. I think of it as a platform for people her age. I know that's probably not the whole story by any stretch, but no, again, it just comes down to time and where best to spend it. So no, I haven't looked into TikTok yet, but I could be easily convinced if you want to make a case for it.
I'm trying to get Adam on TikTok at the moment, but it's he just can't dance well enough. So
I did do a little dance in the cafe before, and you said you liked it.
Yeah, I loved it.
Show us, Adam.
We're gonna go. Yeah, go on, Adam. Get your dance moves out.
It was more of a scream. I had a sail come through and went, ah!
Yeah, well, if dancing is a prerequisite to be on TikTok, then you won't find me there anytime soon, because that's...
I feel like there's a lot of negative energy about dancing. We all need to get into TikTok and tune into the inner rhythms, and we should be good. So yeah, anyway, talking about new things. What would your advice be to new founders in the space?
The space being e-commerce and small business. Yeah. I think, well, I'll tell you what I did that was such a mistake early on. I have a tendency to, if I have a goal or I want to do something, I just put my head down and grind to get it done, which has its benefits and its drawbacks. Benefit is I get things done, but the drawback is I make a ton of mistakes along the way because I just do things the way I think they should be done, even if I have no idea if that's right or not. And I did that for a long time, and I think that wasted a ton of time and money. So I think that one of the best things I did was pick my head up, start connecting with other entrepreneurs, joining Facebook groups, which I did, tons of entrepreneurial groups, asking questions, learning from people who have been in my shoes, right? And it's how we found our manufacturer in China. It was a referral from one of those sites. It's how we got onto ABC's The View. Somebody passed along the producer's name. It's how we figured out Klaviyo was the best email platform for us. I mean, there's so many examples of how it's led to successful outcomes. So I think it's just critical to just talk to other people and learn from them and seriously follow people like Magnet Monster and or hire them, even better if you can. But it's definitely to connect and learn from others who have been there and are doing it better than you are, because nobody does it alone, or nobody does it well alone, I don't believe.
Yeah. I think even what you mentioned before about free content, even if you don't particularly work with someone directly or hire them directly, I think that conversation, just to sit here, like people watching this podcast now, being able to watch this and listen to that kind of conversation that happens, I think it's easier to pick up the context and be able to kind of understand it a bit more and see the relationships that happen in like business to business. But yeah, get involved. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter and everything else as well.
and also to learn to do things yourself. It's just, there are certain things that you're probably outside our skill set, like coding is something I outsource, right? It's just beyond what I have time and probably the skills to do. But, designing your own pop-up is easy, relatively easy. Getting started with flows, you can get some things going. Of course, they can be better and they can be optimized, but there are certain things that you can learn to do yourself and should know how to do yourself, I think, almost basic blocking and tackling type of stuff. Yeah. And I mean, we've experimented with hiring Facebook agencies through the years, none of whom were worth the money we paid them. Not that they weren't good, but we don't have a lot of money to spend. So I think you probably get what you pay for. So recently I joined a group and paid money to learn how to do it, and started doing it myself. And I think that's invaluable. Again, it's going to take me a long time to be as good and I'll probably never be as good as somebody who does it for a living, but I can be pretty good. And even just learning to do it myself, even if I eventually hire someone else to take it over at some point, just being able to understand it at a certain level is important. So I think it's really key. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, there are certain things I think you need to learn to be able to do yourself.
Justin, that's an interesting point, actually. I think getting a base understanding of certain skills before you outsource them, that's something I've tried to do as well. For example, even accountancy, you should have some fundamental understanding of the numbers in your business before, obviously, it's not my strength. And likewise, you mentioned coding before. Just having a very basic rudimentary understanding before you outsource stuff, it can be very important, because otherwise I find you can become detached from your business and you lose understanding of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about accounting. That's the opposite side of my brain. Actually, my wife is the CFO. She majored in accounting or finance in college. But even knowing your numbers, right? Knowing what you can afford to pay to acquire a customer, just certain, basic things, and things like that, I think are critical. If not, you'll just find yourself overspending and probably out of business pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, I think as well, like what we were saying before about having that understanding and the insight to what other people are doing, because then you know what to expect from people and how long things are going to take, because it's easy to turn around and go, oh, will you get 300 Instagram posts out and expect certain things back if you don't really understand all the information that has to go into it.
So it's such a never ending learning process, being a small business owner. It really is. I learn every day. I'm learning something new. Even if I'm just scrolling through LinkedIn and I come across something from you or somebody, one of your competitors, right? Like there's just so much good information. It's I think it's important to soak it all in as much as you can.
Yeah, I completely agree with you and resonate with like surrounding yourself with as many small people as possible and trying to learn from them. That's that's basically like my whole strategy, is just trying to meet small people and learn from them, and then obviously like extracting that and implementing it in our business.
Yeah, I think there's a flip side of all this too, which is that now that I have a certain amount of knowledge, I try to pass it on to other people.
Yeah,
right? So
definitely.
So now I'm on the Facebook boards, and again, I'm not an expert by any stretch, but there are certain things I know about that somebody just starting out wouldn't know about. So really trying to get back to people, whether it's through advice or whether it's through contacts, passing on the name of my manufacturer or whatever it is to help somebody else along the way, I think is really important too. And I get a kick out of that. I like helping people because people help me.
100%. You get a lot of gratification from that. And I think that good karma comes around as well, doesn't it? Like when you give someone and they come back and they say thank you for that. And there's always like not that you do it for a kickback, but something always good happens when you do something to help someone.
Yeah, nice to be nice.
It is. It is. I agree. It does somehow comes back around. I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, I know you probably want to crack on with your day and get back to job number 2. But thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. And obviously, if people want to find out more about the brand, how can they contact you?
So you can find us on our main website, which is zbears.com, 3 Z's. Of course, we're on Instagram and Facebook, same thing, zbears. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, it's just Justin at zbears. It's pretty straightforward. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk small business with anybody who wants to. Not during work hours, though.
That's the alarm to get back to work.
Exactly. That's my work. They just saw me in this.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Justin. Really appreciate it. I'm going to tag you in this video, and obviously, if anyone has any further questions, feel free to just leave a comment. I'm sure Justin will get back to you. But we're going to end things here, and thanks once again.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. And thanks for giving us all the free content. Keep it coming.
Thanks, Justin.
All right.